Welcome. It's hashtag Webinar Wednesday. So excited to be here. I'm Doug Sesserman, privileged to serve as the CEO of Americans for Ben-Gurion University. And we have a great show. For those of you who have joined us before, you know how these webinars work. If you're here for the very first time, welcome. If you give us 30 minutes, we'll give you a glimpse into one of the most vital institutions to the future of Israel, Ben-Gurion University of the Negev. Before we get started, I just want to thank the people behind the scenes, Melody Mokhtarian, Liz Kirshner, and Kara Bortman. We are live on Facebook and streaming worldwide. We have a terrific webinar today about parenting and stress during stress, and a very unique program developed by Professor Naama Atzaba-Poria, and she's going to speak in just a little bit. But if you just don't get enough after today's webinar, please join us in a couple of weeks where we are going to once again be hosting a webinar on the latest on COVID-19. Of course, Israel is ahead of the world on the understanding of how to address COVID. We're going to do a special webinar with Professor Nadav Davidovich on September 1st at noon Eastern about mutations, booster shots, and more. And even just today, President Biden said everybody in the United States is going to be able to begin getting booster shots in September. Okay, so I think I've covered most of the information before getting going. Naama, you ready? Absolutely. One more shout out to Judge Leon Kaplan of Los Angeles, who is just an incredible person, very generous, and without his support, the DUET Center couldn't do the programs that it does. So thank you, Leon, and hopefully you got a bunch of people to attend this webinar. All right, so Professor Naama Atzaba-Poria, is a development child psychologist, chair of the Israeli Association of Infant Mental Health, and head of the developmental psychology track at Ben-Gurion University. She is the founder of BGU's DUET Center, duet as in dancing with one another, where leading research and education provides parents with the tools to develop a rhythm with their children. She describes the DUET Center as a place where research and intervention can meet. The DUET Center is based on a reflective parenting program, an intervention method that Naama learned about in Los Angeles. The method strengthens the parent-child connection. Professor Atzaba-Poria recently published a series of 7 books for infants and toddlers focused on, the books are for the parents, by the way, for infants and toddlers on enhancing parent and child communication. They're very good. Her research focuses on the antecedents and consequences of the parent-child relationship, with a particular interest in parenting during stressful times, such as premature birth, feeding and sleeping issues, and developmental disorders. Her work also focuses on raising children under chronic stress, unfortunately something that Israel really understands quite well, which is often the case for families in the Sderot or Gaza region, but honestly all throughout Israel. Naama grew up in Jerusalem, received her BA and MA from Ben-Gurion University of the Negev, and received her PhD from the University of Surrey in the UK. She's a mother of 3 children herself, and my understanding is that your oldest child just joined the IDF.
That's right, 2 weeks ago.
That's an amazing time in one's life for parent and child. Talk about stress. So Naama, let's just start by you explaining, your work and why you founded the center and what it does.
Well, maybe I should start going back. As I said, my daughter just went to the army 2 weeks ago, and it brought back memories of myself being 18 years old, going to the army from Jerusalem, from a nice house, and then meeting different population in Israel. And I met soldiers who were 18, 19, 20 years old, who were illiterate. They didn't know basic math and didn't know how to write and read. And I remember myself wondering, how can it be? that in Israel we have a compulsory education. How can it be? And of course, they all came from very poor background. And I understood at that time, many years ago, that we need to invest in the early ages because they came from houses where the parents could not support them and could not help them create their self-esteem and self-confidence and succeed. And there I decided to go and study developmental psychology with focus on the parent-child relationship. I think that parent-child relationship is the most important component for good mental health. And what I do in my work is I actually combine between, as you said about DUET, I combine between research and practice. I do my research at the university. I have my lab at the psychology department, but at the same time, I'm practicing psychology, child development psychology at the preschool psychiatric unit at Soroka Medical Center. So there is a nice bridge between the university and Soroka. And I find myself walking.
And not to interrupt, but for those who forgot or aren't quite as familiar, the Soroka Medical Center is the #2 hospital in all of Israel and is literally adjacent to the university.
That's right. And I cross this bridge and between my practice and my research, and I actually think that this is my vision. This is the way we should do research when talking about children, parenting, and development. Because when I work with families in the clinic, I can bring my knowledge and the intervention program that we develop at BGU. And then some questions come up when I meet families and children. And then I'm privileged to go back, to cross back the bridge to my lab and work with my students about that. And this is really like two hands that work together. And this is the idea of DUET Center. This is what we do there.
Wonderful. So for the audience, thank you for joining us. We had over 100 people register and the numbers are growing. So far, so good. If you have a question, just click on the Q&A function. I'll be able to read your questions and then feed them to Naama during her presentation. So,
okay.
One thing that strikes me is that, maybe the most important job humans have in the world is being a parent. Yet there's no educational requirement whatsoever, certificate or anything to be a parent. So people basically have kids and they don't have any skills necessarily to be a parent. So just tell me a little bit about your work and what you've learned.
So maybe I can share with you only a few slides to talk a little bit about what children need from their parents, but the really most important components of the relationship. And then what's happening when parents find it hard to give it to their kids, usually because of stress. And by the way, this talk is named Stressful Parenting or Parenting in Stressful Time. And it's interesting because can we imagine parenting without stress? I think it's hard. I think that we have so many moments of normative stress. Early morning, late at night, most of the time that we are with our kids, we found stressful moments. And the question is, how can we be good parents and how can we help our kids in those moments? And as Winnicott, who was very important, a pediatrician and psychoanalyst, said, to be just good enough. This is what we need to be, good enough. So let me share with you only a few slides. Can you see that? Yeah. Okay, so.
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay, so this is the logo of DUET, and I'm just showing it for a second because it shows our philosophy and our way of looking. We're talking here about a child, a connection between a child and the parent. And each one of them is an individual, separate individual. And there is a constant connection between us. And if you have other kids, you know, that when they were young, we needed certain connection, and now when they're older, we need different connection. And in fact, in parenting, we want to see, in healthy parenting, the motion within us, that we are capable to adjust and change as our children change. And then we are capable constantly to meet their needs appropriately. And as
One thing, Naama, about your logo that I love so much, as a parent myself of 26-year-old twins, that it represents the infinite opportunity to continually improve and work on your relationship, no matter where you are along that child-parent spectrum. So.
Yeah, it's so true. And we all the time need to continue working on that. And as you said, we have opportunity also to do that better. And Winnicott said, there is no such thing as a baby. If you set out to describe a baby, you will always find that you're describing a baby and someone. And I love this quote because it gives a lot of place and attention to this someone who can be the parent, but also can be all the replacement parents, the teacher, the nanny, the grandparents, who are so important also. So what's the connection between those adults who help raising the children and the children themselves? And this is what we do in DUET. We give, and in my lab, we give a lot of attention to the grown-up who raise the kids, because we think that whenever parents know what's happening to them and they understand better their parenting, they are able to be better parents to their kids. And looking again at the logo, there is another meaning, which is that we bring together and we try to do it as much as possible, like two hands, the intervention and, supposed to be research here, the intervention and the research. And this is very, very unique for DUET. So we bring the research from the university and the treatment and intervention from the field, and we have them together. So as we say, in DUET, research and intervention meet for the children. So this is the bridge I said before between Ben-Gurion University and Soroka, and also the community, because we bring our knowledge to the community, to Beersheba and to the surrounding in the Negev.
That's right. We call that bridge the Breslau Bridge, which is one of our very generous families in the States that supports the university. And every time you walk between the hospital and the campus, you walk over the Breslau Bridge.
Okay. So this is a picture that shows you, if you look at this father, and maybe some of you can remember the time when you had young kids in one hand and then the phone and the computer and the kitchen all together. And this is how parenting look in the 21st century. So it's stressful, it's highly demanding. We have multitasking. When our kids need us often, the screen replaces the parents, because this is much easier, and the screens are a big problem of today times. And we feel guilty, anxious, and angry because we cannot do everything at the same time. We have less time to think, so we just react and react. And the new thing now with the corona, the COVID-19, is the uncertainty. So all these difficulties are now an even more serious situation, because the COVID-19 put everything in with a question mark. We are not sure about anything. So this is a big problem, because what children need from their parents is this. This is a really nice picture. Look at this mother. If we look at her face, she really understands what's happening to her baby. She's connected. And again, as Winnicott says, the mother, when she looks at her baby, the way she looks is related to what she sees in there. And this is what the children need. Children need someone that looks at them and can understand what's happening within them, and then mirror it back to them. This is how children develop. It sounds very simple, but unfortunately, because of the stress and because of the multiple demands and not much resources that parents have left for the kids, many kids don't see this face that mirror their feelings and their thoughts. And they are they have to find a way to understand themselves or not. So what we're doing in my research is we try to understand those parents in the different stressful life conditions, and how can we help them so that they will be more available to their children. Again, we need to think a lot about the parents. I need to think about the mom if she is depressed, or if she is preoccupied with her work, or maybe she is worried because of the political situation or security situation. I need to see how I can help this mother pause, breathe, and understand what's happening to her, maybe get some help, some other support from surrounding her, so that she eventually can help her child and be really connected to her child. Children need someone that look at them and help them get their needs. So for example, if we see this baby, and if this baby, which is really sweet, right? If the baby is hungry, we will see the lips moving, and we will see the head moving from one side to the other. And then we understand that the baby is hungry and is going to be fed. And then when he is cold and the blanket comes and covers him and he feels comfortable, he feels good. And if he's tired and the hands hold him, again, he feels good. So this little baby, again and again, he has needs. And when the needs are being met, he feels that the world is good. And that's the basic trust that children in very early ages acquire when they have someone there who is attentive, who observes them, and who meets their needs. So they acquire the basic trust, the secure attachment, and this is the basis, of course, for self-esteem, self-confidence, and eventually, this is also the foundation for success and achievement. And this continues on with the development. Look at this child. He's sitting in front of the homework and he doesn't do that. Why? So I would like to work with the parents about that. Not only to decide what to do, not to find solutions, but to ask questions. And this is the main idea of what we do in our studies. We understand that the core component of the relationship, of the parent-child relationship, is called reflective functioning. Reflective functioning means that the parent is curious, and the parent is trying to understand what's going on in the child's mind. So this is what we want to see. So if the parents pause, look at the child, and start thinking, why is my child not doing the homework? If maybe it's too boring for him, or maybe it's too difficult, maybe his friends are now playing soccer outside. The important part is for the parents to think about that, and then to see if he can talk to the child about it.
So the concept of reflecting is to reflect on why, as a parent, to try to understand and reflect on why your child's behaving a certain way.
Yes, so we know that behind every behavior, always, there is certain cognition and certain emotion, always. Like there aren't many things in psychology that I will be so clear about that, because always we have different reasons. But we do know from research and from clinical work that people behave for certain reasons. And as parents, also as clinicians, we need to try and understand what's going on in my child's mind. Why is he behaving like that? And why am I behaving in a specific way too? So when we're talking about
it seems so simple yet so profound. I mean, maybe I guess in life, as being a parent, you just don't have time, so you're interacting and not thinking necessarily about why you're acting a certain way or why your child is, and then it escalates.
Exactly. I think that you said exactly the problem. It seems so simple. Of course, we're thinking about our children, but try to imagine yourself at 8 o'clock in the morning. Everything is ready. You have to leave work, to leave home to go to work. And then your child decides that he doesn't want the blue shirts, he wants the green shirt. But the green shirt is dirty and he cannot get it, he cannot have it. What can you do? So often we said, no, it's impossible now. Get into the car and we're going to school. But if our parenting always is in this way, we are missing good opportunities to help our child understand what's happening to them. And also, where does it meet me? Because as a parent, I can tell my child, I also want you to have so much the green shirt. I would have been, I would love to have it, to give it to you, but it's dirty, so I cannot do that. Let's come back later from school and we'll wash it and we'll have it for tomorrow.
So in essence, your work is about both the research behind what seems simple but isn't, and then the clinical therapeutic work with families to help them be better parents. Is that right?
It's true. And in particular, we have work. Maybe I will close this so we can talk.
And also you work quite a bit with the Bedouin population, correct? Also?
Yeah, so can you see this slide now?
Yes, it's terrific. I see it.
Yeah, so except for normative stress that we have in every parenting, we have research that we do with different population that experience different level of stress. So we have a big study, longitudinal study of 8 years of longitudinal since the children were born until they are now 8 years old, children that were born premature. You know that when a child is premature, also the parent is sort of premature, we may say, because the parents wasn't really ready for the birth. And what we know is that the parent expected a certain child, dreamt about the child, and then when this is the situation of the child, this is really, really difficult opening for the parenting. What we find is that sometimes parents find it hard to recover from this traumatic beginning, even if the child is healthy. That's the main thing. And then they are preoccupied and overprotective, and eventually children may find many difficulties with those parents. So what we do is we try to understand them. We try to understand the specific stress behavior that parents show. Why are they, for example, so intrusive? And help the parents pause, reflect upon themselves, and see how we can build their trust in their children again. Because otherwise we see many difficulties with the children, a lot of aggression. Children need their environment to explore their environment, and if the parents doesn't allow them, it may be difficult for their development. And we may have, here you see my students, which are the doctoral students. Each one of those projects with the prematurity, Bedouin, and Gaza vicinity, it's huge projects. Just so you know, I know that we have different labs at the university. My lab doesn't have microscopes or all kind of assessments that we do with substances. The material in my lab are human beings, our families, our interaction. So what we do, we have big teams like PhD students, master students, undergraduate students, and we go out to the field to the families. We do many home visits. We may recruit them in the hospital, but then follow them up in their houses. We film them, we ask them questions, we interview them, and then we bring all the material back to the lab, analyze it there, and then when we get to some understanding about their situation.
I think you're actually addressing this question right now, but actually Leon just wrote, he was asking to explain how you take your program into the communities themselves.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so what we do, we believe very much that we need to take our program to every parent, and we would like it to be something that every parent can learn from it. The program that we're doing is a group intervention. It looks like that. So we have parents sitting in a group for 12 sessions, and they discuss different topics, different issues that are related to their parent-child relationship, different challenges in their parenting. So we do it with parents, we do it with teachers, with the nursery teachers, metaplot, and recently also with nurses in Tipat Halav, where the parents come for checkup. What we are trying to do is to go to the community and to work with the professionals in the community and see how we can teach the professionals, psychologists, social workers, different therapists, how to work with parents and others about how to enhance the reflective capacity, about this language, about this way of thinking, because this really will help them manage their parenting even under stress. And what we hope, what we think is that the more we are out there in the field working with people who are anyway working with them, this is a good way to implement this way of thinking and to create a community intervention. And that will eventually stay there. So this is what we do. And I can give you an example, maybe, how we connect between the research and the field work from our study in Gaza vicinity. So we have one study that we did in Gaza vicinity, Otef Aza, which is Sderot and the kibbutzim around that. You know that in Sderot, we have about 70,000 families living there. And in the last year, they have been exposed to more than 2,000 rockets. I will stop this. Okay, more than 2,000 rockets. This means that in these families have 15 seconds, 15, some of them even 7 seconds to take their kids and run to the shelter. How can you reflect? How can you even think in those moments? You can't. In those moments, you have to act. You have to survive. But these children still needs to grow up and to understand themselves and to understand their environment. And therefore, they must have opportunities with their parents to understand their everyday life. So what we understand in Gaza vicinity, for example, is that parents try to compensate for the life there. Do you know what's the most prevalent emotion that parents experience in Gaza vicinity?
I don't know.
I thought at the beginning that it will be fear or anxiety, which they also, of course, have, but it's guilt. Mm-hmm. Parents feel such a high level of guilt because this is the life that they give to their kids. Children have to wake up at night and run to the shelter. They cannot play outside in the yard during certain times because they have 15 seconds to get to the shelter. So their life is really difficult. So let's imagine, just try to imagine this happened to us. And we had a terrible night. We had to run to the shelter several times, and now it's morning time. And my kid got one lollipop already, and he wants another one. Will I say, okay? Or he doesn't want to go now to school. Will I say, okay, poor child, I'll let him stay at home. So how can you frustrate your child after all what they're going through? But we know that children need limits. They need this structuring because it helps them actually manage those difficulties. So this is something that we learned, that when parents live in certain situations, their guilt feelings and their anxiety may cause them to think about their own feelings and then not to see their child needs. And what we do is we develop a program that we sit with those parents and we help them understand the situation. For example, now we're about to start a very big project where we actually try to get to all the people who are working with children in Gaza vicinity, in Otef Aza, work with children under the age of 5, from 0 to 5. These are the ages, the infancy and toddler years, that are the most neglected ages in research and in government investment of I may say, money and resources, because it feels like, okay, they don't understand much. They're only babies, they're only young children. But we do know that these are the times where we build and we plant the roots of their self. So
Naama,
in
this
biological
is
psychology, I know that these are the important time to understand those kids and to help them.
so this is our half an hour flew by, and we always want to leave our audience wanting more, but there are some questions that have built up. So let me just take a couple of extra minutes to feed you a few questions that have come in, and
Sure.
then we'll wrap up the program. Rachel Martin's asking, how does your program address, if at all, domestic violence when it becomes apparent?
Yeah, we believe that when we see domestic violence, and by the way, we also see nowadays more and more, which is really sad, violence in their kindergarten, in the nurseries. We see teachers that lose it, and they really behave in an abusive manner. What we understand is that first we have
and there's both abuse of the children, then there's the violence or abuse between just the parents, the spouse.
That's right. So what we do is we have program where we work with those parents to understand what happened to them, that they behaved in this manner. We believe that in order to make a change, we need to pause and understand the parents' situation and how come that they lost their ability to regulate themselves. And we believe that only if we'll do that, of course, if the situation is too extreme, we need first of all to stop it and to make sure that the kids and the family is safe. But often the cases that we see are in the gray area. So it's not abusive, but it's not good enough, definitely not. So what we try to do is to work with the parents who often have this guilt feeling about the fact that they shout and that they hit their kids or other members in the family. And we have to try and work with them on what happened to them and how can they next time find ways to regulate themselves, to pause, and to find a different way to behave and express their feelings.
And again, that's part of what you mean by reflective. So as a parent, to try to see yourself in the mirror, reflect on your own behaviors and what's causing you to do that, to develop coping mechanisms in dealing with your kids.
That's right. And one more thing, one of the findings that we have in our studies is that when parents participate in our group intervention, so following that, their own self-regulation is much better. And also their relationship with their kids, when we film it and then quote it, we see that the relationship is improved, although the kids are not part of the intervention. And more than that, children behavioral problem and self-regulation is becoming better. So there is something about stopping, pausing. We don't have enough time for that in our life. Just to stop and breathe and reflect upon our behavior. This is something so important so that we can re-engage to our family in a more appropriate and a settled manner.
Okay, two more questions, then we're going to have to close it. So Steve Siegel's asking, are children better off with parents at home who are, and we're talking about infant children, are children better off with parents at home that are busy multitasking, or actually going to like a preschool or infant care where they can get more interaction?
Well, there is a big debate, a big fight between orientation. What we know is that it really varies. It depends who is the parent and what's the other alternative, the kindergarten or the nursery. We definitely know that children needs to be in a place where parents have the time for them, are available to them. It's better for a child to be in a nursery in a good one, of course, where parents choose a good enough place, and to meet the children in the afternoon when the parents are available, emotionally and physically available to the child, as opposed to a parent who feels that it's good for the child to be next to him or her and they're too busy to be there with the child.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense too. The last question goes to Philip Gompertz in Los Angeles. I know you know Philip also. He's asking, how much does your research focus on the kind of the upbringing or the background of the parents as it relates to how they were brought up and how that affects how they raise their children?
That's a beautiful question. Because our program is, I can say, maybe a combination between more dynamic approach in psychology, looking at the background of the parents, and more what is called today CBT or behavioral approach, where we try to make a change while practicing in the group. We give a lot of attention to the parent background. We believe that children, we know that from research, and this is our approach, children brings parents back to their own childhood and to their own experiences. And every meeting, every intervention that I do, I always ask the parents, how did you feel when you were a child? Tell me about your experiences. So we know that we can either be exactly like our parents, although that sometimes we want to be different, but we find ourselves doing the same things, or we try to do the negative things because we're so aware to the fact that it wasn't good for us. So constantly we have this interaction with our past, and we bring it a lot. It's part of what we're doing. We're engaging with the child within the parents, with the parents' parents, and with the child of the parents. Everybody is in the room.
Well, thank you very much. So David Ben-Gurion, the founder and first prime minister of Israel, and the guy whose name is on the door of our university, once said that the Negev offers the greatest opportunity to achieve everything from the very beginning. And Naama, your work offers the same to parents through reflective parenting and your approach between research. I love the concept of the DUET, and the clinical work in terms of therapy with families offers parents and children the opportunity to start anew or start from the beginning every day. So thank you for everything that you do. Judge Leon Kaplan, thank you for your support. And everybody stay safe and be healthy.